The rain season is upon us, and obviously it reminds us that we need to go back to our fields and start plowing the land. We need to start preparing the land, and also we need to start doing a lot of planting. This is the period of time, this is the period of the year that most of us have been waiting for, because we've been eagerly waiting for the rain so that we can get back to our fields and plant. For many farmers, they might want to put up some soya beans, some sorghum, millet, maize, and so on and so forth. We need to supply, or we need to assist a government in the diversification agenda in the agricultural sector, meaning we do not want to stick to one particular crop, but we want to diversify. Mr. Victor Mpundu, who is also the director for AgriWealth, has decided to diversify his passion for the agricultural sector. He has decided to pursue his passion for watermelons, and currently he's put up a very, very good portion of land, and his watermelons are almost ready, and in the next 2 weeks they will be on the market. Today we decided to visit his farm just near 10 miles, near Chief Mongole's area, and wow, we are impressed with what we have found here. Come with me as I take you through the journey of watermelon planting and just what you need to do, especially if you've been thinking about planting watermelons during this rain season. All right, so there are quite a number of plans by different farmers really to venture into watermelon farming, especially during this particular rain season, because water is available, so they don't have to worry about watering and stuff like that. But there are quite a number of things that you need to put into perspective if you're thinking about venturing into watermelon farming, especially during rainy season. Okay, so some of the things that you need to bear in mind are things such as how you can control the weeds, how you can control the pests, and so on and so forth. Those are just a few things that I might actually tell you at the back of my head, but obviously Victor Mpundu should be able to tell us more about how you can manage your watermelons during the rain season, and at the same time appreciate the yield and get the best and be able to supply the Zambian market. Remember that one of the rare cash crops during the rainy season is actually a watermelon, because it's not an easy fruit, it's not an easy crop to plant during the rainy season. Victor, thank you so much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for allowing us to visit your farm. We are quite impressed with what we have found here. It's quite an impressive, venture. You have ventured into something that is not really easy to put up during the rainy season. First things first, what are some of the steps, especially if one wants to plant watermelons during the rainy season?
Okay, of course, as we all know, rainy season always brings with it a number of challenges. Mm-hmm. You as a farmer, you have to ensure that you plan way ahead so that you mitigate some challenges. As we're able to see where we're standing right now, our workers were just doing some weeding because weeds grow at a very fast rate. Mm-hmm. You have to know that there is no selective weed killer for watermelon, which means when it comes to weeding, you have to go in yourself and remove the weeds either by hand or using a hoe.
So you cannot apply a weed killer with watermelons?
No, there is no selective weed killer for watermelons, not as yet.
Okay. But
perhaps we hope that maybe as these aspects of science keep on improving, we can have that opportunity of having a selective weed killer for watermelons. But as of now, there is no selective weed killer for watermelons, which means you have to go in yourself. So that's one of the challenges that you have to look out for as a farmer. And then when it comes to rainy season also, we see that there are a number of diseases that normally come up. And one of those challenges are fungal diseases. These leaves which I have in my hands, I just picked them a few minutes ago. They show some of the diseases that normally come with rainy season. Apart from that, also we have an issue of watermelons rotting. As you can see, this watermelon, it was supposed to yield up to something, but unfortunately it got rotten. So as a farmer, you have to look out for some of these challenges. That it's not widespread. The fact of the matter is, in one way or another, you'll be able to experience that here or there some crops are rotting. But what can be the preventive measures? Well, we do have some chemicals which are available on the market. On our side, we've always been using Osho products that have really helped us when it comes to these challenges. We normally use copper-based fungicides. Any copper-based fungicide which can be gotten from any agro shop, those are available. You can get the copper-based fungicides which you can use to spray your crop. And during rainy season, it's a good practice to ensure that you spray after every occurrence of rain, if possible. If that is in your power, you have to spray just after any incidence of rain that comes by. So when you look at this a particular watermelon which just got rotten from the field, you discover that during rainy season the incidences of bacterial diseases and fungicides is normally very high. So you have to ensure that you spray your crop using copper-based fungicides. Not only that, but also other fungicides as well, which are both preventative and also at the same time also curative.
So the rotting of these small watermelons is not as a result of too much water?
No.
Okay.
So the fact of the matter is, any crop is susceptible to a number of diseases. The rains that just come, they increase the incidences.
Okay.
So in one way or another, you expect, that you experience either bacterial diseases or you experience, fungicides. And that's the reason why it is important for you as a farmer, from the word go, to ensure that you have got a very good program in place, a very good spray program. Of course, we'll show our viewers, a sample of a spray program and how you can follow it. So a good spray program, you need to ensure that you have a fungicide, the bactericide, the insecticides, and of course your foliar fertilizers. Those are key. When you have those in place, beyond doubt, you can be able to have a good yield ultimately.
So obviously, the job starts just from land preparation itself. During rain season, how is land supposed to be prepared? Is it the same when you want to plant watermelons during, the dry season?
Okay, well, it depends with how the flow of your land is. If perhaps you are in a low land area, it's not recommended that you plant using the potholing method like we discussed last time. Mm-hmm. The best method you can use are the ridging methods. And I know most of our people in Zambia, normally they are able to plant watermelons using those ridges, the way we plant kandolo.
Mm-hmm.
So you raise your soils, and then you put your manure at the bottom, and then you put your topsoil, then you can plant on raised beds. So raised beds are the best if your land, for example, has a lot of water, logging and things like that. But as you're able to observe in our farm, we have an area which has a downflow kind of arrangement. So what we have found to be helpful here are the basins. So even during this rainy season, we are still using the same method, and of course the downflow of water also is quite very high here, because most of our soils they have these stones in them and the like, so it's very easy for water to flow down faster. So as a farmer, you have to observe how is the flow of water on my land. If your soils are prone to issues of waterlogging, you're better off ensuring that you plant your watermelons using raised beds.
But is the yield the same if somebody, for example, apanga imikuta, exactly, apanga imikuta, and somebody who just makes the ridging like this, is the yield expected to be the same?
Yeah, definitely the yield is the same. We don't expect much difference. The only differentiating factor is the manure.
Okay.
That's what makes watermelons to give you very good yields. It's the manure. So as a farmer, it's always encouraged that whether you're using the ridging methods where you have your raised beds, or of course this particular method where you are doing the potholing method, it's always encouraged that you ensure that you use enough and adequate manure. 1 hectare can take about 10 tons of manure, so that's quite a lot of manure.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you're able to see, just where we are standing here, we have this watermelon which is almost weighing about 10 kilos. So for you to get a watermelon that looks as big as this one, you have to ensure that you put in your very best. Otherwise, it's something that is very attainable for each and every farmer.
Now, in an event that a startup farmer doesn't have access to manure, what do you usually recommend?
Well, if a startup farmer doesn't have access to manure, there are fertilizers that you can use. Okay. And the spray program, which is in the book which we have published, the guide to watermelon farming, it highlights some of the best fertilizers which we have current on the market, which you can be able to use. So we encourage all those that are watching to get access to our book. They can contact us through Facebook, our Facebook page, of course your Facebook page, AgriWith, so that they get access to the spray program. We have shared this spray program also on our site. Others can call through and then get that particular publication. It highlights some of the fertilizers that a particular farmer can use. For example, you need to have a base of fertilizer which is very high in phosphorus to help with root formation. From here, of course, we'll have a chance to see the new seedlings which we have on the other side, to appreciate how these seedlings come up when we give them adequate fertilizer which is high in phosphorus. Then, of course, after the first phase, we have the top dressing fertilizer. Okay, so that top dressing fertilizer is high in nitrogen, but also in phosphorus still, and also ultimately potassium. So a balance in these three nutrients, which we call the NPK, is always very important for you to have a watermelon that can weigh up to 10 kg plus. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So now, the moment the seeds are planted, it could be in the ridges or maybe by the formation of the hill-like method. What kind of care do little watermelon that are just sprouting need at that stage?
So the first aspect is the aspect of weeding. Since we mentioned earlier that these crops, they do not have a selective weed killer. So you as a farmer, you have to make sure that you control the weeds. That's the first aspect. And then in the spray program, we have arranged activities in such a way that every week a farmer knows what they're supposed to spray. So like I mentioned earlier, each watermelon plant has to be given enough insecticide to protect it against any attack from the insects. The leaves which we have, for example, here, they show these are attacks from leaf miners. We call them leaf miners because they make lines on top of the leaf, so we call them leaf miners. So you have to protect your crop against leaf miners. Leaf miners and aphids are the two most common insects that attack watermelon. Okay, and when the watermelons reach a certain maturity stage, you also have an incidence of what we call melon flies. So these they more or less look like house flies, but they're melon flies. So they have a tendency of eating through the watermelon and hence making it get rotten like that. So you have to look out for leaf miners, you have to look out for aphids and melon flies. So these three are very much common when it comes to watermelon farming. So when we sort out these, then we can now go to the next level to say, okay, are there any incidences of fungal diseases? You always have to look out for these fungal diseases. For example, I think when I was moving around, I was able to see that there are some incidences of fungal diseases, yellowing and darkening of leaves. So as a farmer, when I look out for these, it gives me an idea of what I need to apply. These certain fungicides are preventative, some are curative. So when I see an incidence of a fungal, I have to ensure that I put in a fungicide that can cure those particular fungal diseases. Some fungicides are preventative, which means they prevent these from happening. But ultimately, nothing is perfect. Some of these things can still come in your crop, so you have to work hard at protecting your crop by all possible means.
How easy is that, especially during the rainy season?
During the rainy season, it's very tough, I must say. Because, for example, you can imagine, you just from finishing spraying your field, and then you have a heavy downpour come through. So you discover that what you have sprayed on the crop, it gets washed out immediately. And that's the reason why we always encourage our farmers to say, if I'm spraying an insecticide or a fungicide, it is important for me to use a spreader and waiter, so that in an incidence of having a heavy downpour, I'm able to protect my crop. Okay, and apart from that, it is a good practice during rainy season that you utilize those periods when there is a break away from the rains. You ensure that you go in your field, do the spraying and things like that, so that by the time the rains are coming, your crop is already protected. When the rains go, care for your field, remove the weeds around like we are doing currently. There has been some brief from the rain, so we are busy ensuring that we remove these weeds. But ultimately, we know that again after a few days as well, these things again will start coming up. So we try to work as hard as we can all the time to protect our field.
All right, so those are some of the things that you just need to bear in mind if you want to venture into watermelon during the rainy season. It's a tough run, but worthwhile. All right, so now, Mr. Mpundo, obviously, as the watermelon grows from one stage to the other, even the kind of care that you give them also varies. I don't know at what stage do watermelons during the rainy season need so much of your attention?
Okay, I must say that during rainy season, watermelons need daily care.
Okay.
As you may be aware, these weeds, they grow at a very fast rate. When you just close up your eyes, the next day, if you don't go to your field to weed 2 or 3 days, you discover that the weeds would have sprouted. And we know that weeds harbor a lot of insects. Weeds harbor a lot of insects. So it is imperative that you as a farmer, you keep following your program every week. You ensure that you enter into the field, remove any weeds that are available, so that you protect your crop from any attack. Because rainy season, not only do they just promote weeds, but they also promote the growth of other insects within the bushes that are created underneath the plant. So you have to always be there as a farmer to ensure that you care for your crop each and every day.
You talked about the usage of manure,
Yeah,
and fertilizer. How are the two used to promote the proper growth of watermelons?
well, I must say that one of the benefits that come from using organic manure, cow manure, poultry manure, is that it helps in propagating faster growth of the crops. But at the same time, also you discover that the weights that you get are normally higher. The weights are higher because having organic matter in the soil that promotes faster growth of your crops, it means you'll be having more value at the market. So there's always a difference when it comes to the weight that I can get from a particular watermelon that I purely grew using manure and one that I just purely grew using a fertilizer. So it is always a good practice for a farmer that if you intend to have good yields of watermelon, incorporate the aspect of manure, but at the same time also perhaps any nutrients that can be missing from the manure, you propagate it using a fertilizer.
So at what stage do you apply your manure?
So when you are planting, like these ones, as we're able to see, even just from this hole here, before we planted, we had to apply manure 2 months before. We had to put manure, and then we had to water the holes for that period of time so that the manure gets decomposed. Because remember, manure comes with a lot of pathogens and things like that. So you have to ensure that your manure gets decomposed. So this is what we had here. So this manure, we applied it 2 months to a month before. Then much of it had to get decomposed before we ultimately planted.
So it doesn't really matter what kind of manure you use, as long as it's manure, it goes.
Well, it matters. It matters. I always say that a combination of both cow and poultry manure is a very good and powerful combination. Where I put 2 parts of cow manure to 1 part of poultry manure. It's a very good and powerful combination, and it gives you the results that you're able to see. If you're able to see behind us here, these crops are looking green. They're looking good, all because of what we were able to put in.
So obviously, as you put in manure, you plant, at what stage would you be introducing fertilizer?
Okay, so when we plant a seed, let's say for example, like the way it is today, Saturday, we are planting. When we come to the field, we'll do what we call pre-irrigation. Okay, we'll do pre-irrigation. We pre-irrigate our field, then we plant our seeds. But remember, because the manure is about 25 centimeters below, it means that the soil which is on top, it still needs more nutrients. So what we do is that we add a base of fertilizer.
Okay.
So we add a base of fertilizer. Most of the times we even use compound D. That's what we use. So we use compound D, then as a base of fertilizer. Then after 21 days, we can now use a top basal fertilizer for horticultural use.
So what's the purpose of that top
so
fertilizer that you use after 21 days?
So the top basal fertilizer, it helps in making the watermelons sweeter.
Okay.
Yeah. I suppose you have seen before that you buy certain watermelons. It's something which is very big, but inside it's white. What causes that at times is because of lack of potassium. So we normally use these top basal fertilizers so that they can help a plant in this case, the watermelon plant to be not only just red inside, but at the same time also sweet. Because what makes the watermelon red and sweet inside? It's the potassium. Yeah. So if you do not give your plant, potassium and the like, it means it will not be sweet. You can produce also watermelons which are very big, but they're not sweet. You take them to the market, people cut them, they are white inside. So that means you are taking yourself out of the market. So we try to ensure that we incorporate these fertilizers so that any deficiencies that we can have or expect from the manure, we still balance it up like that. Yeah.
When it comes to the application of chemicals for pest control and fertilizer, are these done at the same time, or perhaps they could be done differently? And is there such things as application of pesticides, and what could be the implications?
Okay, when it comes to spraying, I must mention that it is important for a farmer to be consistent in the way they apply, these chemicals.
That consistency in terms of days and weeks, how should it be measured?
Yeah. So, for example, if I select to say, I'll be doing my spray program on Monday and Tuesday, it means I have to maintain that particular program even in the subsequent weeks. So that way, it helps in controlling any pests and diseases, other than doing it haphazardly. Today I spray on Monday, the other time it's on Tuesday. It's always encouraged that we are consistent in the way we spray. That is how we can be able to yield, watermelons which are very big. Consistency in spraying, it's very important for a farmer. So that's the practice that we always encourage all the farmers that we work with as AgriWealth.
Using the same chemicals?
No. Of course, we vary chemicals. And the reason why we vary chemicals is because, we try to avoid the aspect of resistance. I suppose you remember that previously, or years back, when we had malaria, we were using chloroquine, those medicines. But of late, we've changed because of, resistance that has developed. It's also the same with plants. We don't use the same, chemicals week in, week out. We try to change them so that we attack these pests, from different angles, because they tend to also get that kind of resistance. So if we are just get used to one particular, chemical, chances of having resistance, developing resistance, is quite high, and that in itself can, affect how you control your pests. So using your pest control management program, you have to vary. And also when it comes to these chemicals, some chemicals are preventative, some are curative. So you have to ask yourself, why am I applying a particular chemical? Okay, is it to prevent, or do I want to cure?
So at what stage do you apply the preventive chemical?
Okay, so the preventive chemicals, we apply them so that we prevent, these pests coming into the crop. And then we have to always look out thereafter. You pass through your field to check if at all there is any incidents, for example, of aphids. For example, last week when we were passing through, we were checking to see if at all there are any incidences of pests. And then we were able to spot that we had some aphids. So we had to spray, aphids. So today, for example, like we have observed, there's some leaf miners. So we have to go to our program and check which chemical we're supposed to apply, which is able to help us, control our leaf miners. So it is important to do a good scouting, move around your field line by line, see what is happening, because these insects can, within just one night, they can move, massively to longer distances and then affect the entire field. So we have to ensure that we keep on checking, you scout out so that we remove any pests and diseases that are around.
So when you're applying the preventive chemicals, do you consider the stage at which the watermelons are? For example, when they're just coming out, or when they have grown, or when they're already, producing flowers and the seed itself?
Yes, that's true. It is important for a farmer to know what particular chemical they are applying and at what stage. And that, of course, reminds me, Nelson, that it is important for us to read labels. For example, there are certain chemicals like I'll give an example of thioxamine. Thioxamine is it affects bees to a larger extent. If, for example, I apply that particular chemical when my crop is at the stage at which it is, it means that not only am I also killing the bees, okay, and that in itself can affect the yield. So I have to be very careful and know at what stage can I apply a particular chemical, because some of these chemicals, they can adversely affect the bee population. And if you affect the bee population, it means you are not having any pollination happening, or the pollination rate will reduce, and then that in itself can lead to you having very low yield. So as a farmer, you have to know when to apply a particular chemical, the reason why, and at what stage, so that we avoid any of those incidences.
Interesting. So at the stage at which your crop is, what chemical are you applying? Preventive, curative?
So we are applying preventive
Okay.
chemicals, but we always try to do the scouting every week. So today we are doing the scouting, and we have observed some incidences. So which means that as much as we are of course preventing, there were still these loopholes somewhere there. So what we'll be doing next, starting tomorrow, will be to put or apply a chemical that will help us prevent these incidences of rotting from happening. The fungals that we have observed, we need to apply chemicals that are curative to help us prevent and protect our crop.
Combining these chemicals to make sure that you deal with fungal infection, leaf miners, and of course aphids as well, is that advisable? Does it happen? Does it have any effects on the crop?
Yeah, so when it comes to chemicals, it is always important to read the labels. On the label, it can help you to know which chemicals you can mix and which you can't. Many of these insecticides are compatible with fungicides, but it's important for you to know which ones you can't mix. For example, the copper-based fungicides, it is always encouraged to spray them separate. You can't mix the copper-based fungicide with any other fungicides, and also any other insecticides. You have to do them separate. But that always comes down to you knowing how to read. Don't just leave the chemicals with the workers and tell them to say, you spray them. They'll just mix everything in one fertilizer, insecticide, and you discover that the whole process is not working, and you start wondering why. So it is important for farmers to ensure that they read the labels, understand, before ultimately spraying the field.
I'm very keen on the issue of weeding, because sometimes when you've got a very huge portion of land, weeding becomes a very challenge, especially if at all your workforce is not that big, because what will be happening is people weed here, again the other time they weed the other side. Now with the coming of the rainy season, like you mentioned, weeding is really a challenge. So how is weeding supposed to be done, especially if I told somebody has got a bigger land and they've put up watermelons and they seem to be coming out so well?
Okay, a good practice in rainy season before you plant your watermelons is to utilize these chemicals which we have, like weed killers. So before perhaps you plant, what you can do is that you can allow, for example, rain to pour on that particular piece of land for maybe a week or two. When the weeds come out, you apply these non-selective weed killers so that you clear off any weeds, and thereafter you do the planting. That in itself helps you, or it buys you at least more time, because ultimately, remember, these weeds somehow they still find themselves out, but at least the levels would have reduced, and it becomes very easy for you to be able to control the weeds. So it would be a good practice. Perhaps maybe you wait for a week or two before planting, so that rain falls on the land, then you clear out the weeds using non-selective weed killers, and then thereafter you do your planting.
All right, so come with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we take you around the farm and of course just show you the size of the watermelons that we have here. Gosh, in the next 2 weeks, these fruits will be on the market, and I'm sure that you'll be among the recipients who will be enjoying this beautiful fruit. All right, so now, Mr. Mpundu, I've observed that, in a few instances, there have been, instances where, the seedlings, as they're coming out, it's like somebody was cutting them. What causes this really?
Okay, so as you've been able to observe, within the same area here, we have this issue. The problem here is the cutworms.
Okay.
So the manure that we normally use, comes with cutworms. At times when you do the correct thing, you drench. Normally we encourage that we drench with chemicals that have alpha cypermethrin just to kill off the cutworms. But of course there are these incidences where some of these cutworms still find their way up to the next stage when the crop is at this level. So as you're able to observe here, this crop is just cut just right up where it is coming from the ground. That is where it is cut. So this is an incidence of a cutworm, cutting this particular crop. And as you can see, even on this other one as well, it's still struggling a bit. Okay, it's still struggling a bit. So these are some of the challenges that we normally face, the issue of cutworms, but it can be controlled.
Okay, so at what stage do you begin controlling the cutworms?
So the cutworms have to be controlled at the stage when you plant your crop.
Okay.
So that is the stage that you control your cutworm. So the day when you are putting your seedlings there, so ensure that you drench each hole where you have planted with a chemical. Times alpha cypermethrin is a good chemical that helps in controlling these cutworms.
Okay. You talked about these cutworms coming as a result of perhaps the manure that you are applying. Exactly. Is there a way in which this manure can be treated before it is mixed with your soil?
Okay. So one of the things that we can do is decomposing it for a longer period of time.
Okay.
I must mention to say that in a way, nature is nature. There are certain things that at times, even when you do them right, somehow because of climate change, there are these things which keep on changing. The profile of these insects also keep on changing. Their resistance to these chemicals also keeps on changing. But it is a good practice to decompose your manure for a long period of time to avoid the incidences of cutworms, and of course treat them with the chemicals. Those are the practical ways in which you can protect the crop. But of course it is not only these incidents. Here also we have had issues where we have mice, mbeba. Mbeba, mice, at times they also eat. Even quails, they move around here, they also eat. I think there's an incidence here which we have where a particular crop, this particular crop here which we have, so we have something here. So you've seen this watermelon was coming out so nicely, so at times birds, quails, mice can come through to eat, so you have to find ways and means. We have a lot of mice around this place, so I want to call our friends from Chipata to come and help us and assist us in sorting out this problem. So we have all these problems, we have mice around, but we have to use some baits just to trap these so that we protect the crop.
So obviously when watermelons are still at a tender age like this, they're quite vulnerable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they are quite vulnerable. So attacks from quails, attacks from mice, birds around, it's a very big problem. So that's the reason why we're saying that as a farmer you always have to be moving and scouting in your field to see the challenges and problems which are there so that you're able to protect and mitigate such kind of incidences from happening.
All right, so Mr. Mpundu, I've observed that the geographical location of your land is quite different. What we're coming from, which I can safely call the A side, it's more of a lot of flat land. Here it's a bit rocky, sandy, and all that. I don't know whether the nature of the land would affect the possible yield and growth of watermelons.
Okay, as you can see, this part of the land is a bit rocky, but the beauty with this type of method of farming, where you put manure, we more or less change the profile of the soil.
Okay.
I was able to observe. You can even see, how these watermelons are coming up, even if the land is rocky. But because of the way we prepared, this land, you discover that water is able to sit with each hole which we have from there to here. We're able to observe that water is able to sit. If you look at just the other side there, it's even a bit dry. But when you look here, it's a bit different, because potholing method has the ability to make water sit, unlike where you do the raised beds. So this particular method of farming is actually very good, and this is why we were suggesting earlier to say if we observe from where we're coming from, that side to here, the differences are there. What we try to do is to stagger the crop in different stages, so that at least at almost every stage we can have production. So these ones, if you look at these ones and those ones which we have the other side, there's a difference of about a month. So that in itself will help us. By the time we are harvesting and we are finishing off the other side, the new field would have opened up. So when you stagger crops like that as a farmer, it ultimately helps you to have production throughout the year.
I believe for somebody to also appreciate the benefits and do well in obviously in watermelon, basic training really is vital.
Yeah, that's true.
Where can youths actually find that basic training that can help them master all this information that has been given out?
Actually, we as AgriWith, we work hard at providing training, not just one-to-one training, but also even online training. So what we do is that every year, every quarter, we normally do watermelon training programs. We have done these trainings at the School of Veterinary Medicine here in Lusaka. We've done them in Malawi. We have done them in Botswana. We've done them on the Copper Belt in Kitwe. And of course, on the 28th of this month, we'll also be having another training in Ndola. So all these trainings are there to help youths, access information. And besides that, we also, share information on our Facebook page called the AgriWith. So on our Facebook page, we have, different topics that we discuss. We discuss, topics from land preparation. We discuss, topics on crop care and management. We discuss aspects, of finance as well, budgeting. That information is actually very much available on our Facebook page, where people can easily go there and access it. We also share, real life examples and experiences through videos. We have quite a number of videos on our archive. When you check our Facebook page, there are quite a number of videos that we have shared there. So we would encourage all the farmers to check on our Facebook page to see the videos which we have. But at the same time, also we encourage the farmers to visit AgriWith page on Facebook and see the information which we have available. On our page, we also share information as to when the next training will be. So this time around, we're having the training in Ndola. So we encourage all those that are watching to look out on our Facebook page, where they can get information, latest information as to when we're going to have this training. But we have the date on the 28th of December, just next month. We'll communicate the exact venue where we're going to have our training from. So we encourage all the youths. We want to see more youths in farming and also. Because what we've been observing is that we have the older generation, but this is a passing generation. The older ones are passing. But we, the youths, are the ones who have to ensure that we take up farming to the next level. So we want to encourage as many youths as possible to come and learn how they can venture into watermelon farming, and of course, all other types of farming. As we're able to observe where we are here, we have the poultry house there, and what we have the other side as well, we're having the land which is being cleared so that we can have another crop, so that we don't just do a single crop, but we can also venture into other crops as well as poultry farming. So we are working hard. We don't just speak, but we do it practically, and want all the other youths as well to come on board and also learn.
If somebody is taking the route that you're taking as well, of having watermelons here, another land being cleared there is also poultry there, and perhaps there is also another bare land whereby you're having other plans to put up something, how do they practice crop rotation at this particular area like this, if they're to take the direction and the angle that you're taking perhaps?
Yeah, when it comes to watermelons, we always encourage that we do crop rotation, because certain diseases can be in a particular place for quite a long time. For example, we have diseases like Fusarium wilt, which can stay in the soil for a period of even about 5 to 10 years. But crop rotation helps us to eliminate these diseases. That's the reason why, as you are able to see here, we are doing watermelons. But I'm pretty sure the next time when you visit again, we'll have a totally different crop. So we invite you to come after about 5 or so months. You come and see that we have done a rotation to have a different set of crop. So the whole reason why we do this is to ensure that we protect the soil and maintain the soil profile by rotating it with another particular crop. So we encourage farmers to ensure that they do crop rotation with another crop so that you maintain the soil profile and also eliminate the aspects of pests and diseases which are normally known for a particular kind of crop.
So like in your case, I don't know whether this will be preemptive, but what kind of other crops do you wish to introduce on your farm?
Yeah, so we intend to introduce onion as well.
Okay.
We intend to introduce onion. We also intend to introduce fresh maize. So perhaps in the few months to come, when you pass through, you'll see that we'd have done a rotation with those particular crops. So we encourage you to pass through and see the rotations that we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I think it's been a worthwhile visit. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you so much, Nelson, and we look forward. Hopefully we can have you also in Ndola on the 28th.
Definitely. We'll try by all means to make arrangements that we can obviously get to visit more farmers as well while planning to venture into this. So from where we started up until here, maybe from where we started, when is the crop likely to be available on the market?
So like the first part of the field, the crop is likely to be available on the 15th of December. We should be harvesting. And then this other field which we have, we should be ready by end of January. So
okay.
We have staggered it in this way so that we can have something at every stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, if there is one particular crop that many farmers haven't yet utilized to the fullest in terms of value addition, a watermelon could be one of them. I don't know how the future really looks like when it comes to value addition to the melons. Are there any future plans that you're looking at, perhaps adding value to it, just apart from selling it as raw?
Definitely, Nelson. And one of the days we invite you so that you come to the launch of some of these products that we are working at behind the scenes. So we look forward in the next few months to having a breakthrough in value addition to watermelon. And we invite you with the help of other stakeholders so that you can come and see the value that will be adding to this crop. So we are not just going to end at growing them like this, but we're trying to engage other farmers and add value to it. And in the next few months, we invite you to the launch of the products that are in the pipeline from watermelons.
All right. Well, Mr. Mpundu, thank you so much. Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. It was good having you.
Please.
Thank you.
All right, so our journey has ended for today. Today it's done and dusted, but obviously we will be coming back, okay? We might as well want to borrow Arnold Schwarzenegger's words, I'll be back, okay? So we'll be back in the next 3 to 4 months, and perhaps it will be a very different visit altogether, because we might actually be looking at a crop rotational program that Mr. Mpundu has been talking about, and we might find different crops altogether. Otherwise, watermelon still remains one of the biggest cash crops that you might think of putting up on your farm. For more information, please feel free to visit AgriWorth Facebook page, and of course interact with Mr. Mpundu and get more information on how you can successfully plant this fruit. I hope this episode has been very helpful to you. So until next time, please join us in the next episode.